Hi, thank you. My name is Amy Wilson. I am the founder of the ASH Network. We do recovery supports and advocacy. The nonprofit is named after my stepdaughter, Ashley, who battled a heroin addiction. In 2019, when we learned about her addiction, we started to learn a lot of things. We didn't have any exposure really to things like heroin, fentanyl, and operated under the misconception that a lot of people do, that people who are addicted to substances are lazy. It's a choice. And that's just not true. Ashley was raised in a pretty affluent community, went to Whitehall schools. She was a cheerleader. She played softball. She was married with 2 kids, and her husband made a decent wage. So she didn't fit that typical profile that people think about when they don't know much about addiction. The next thing we learned was how hard it is to find help when you're struggling with addiction. You can't just call somewhere and then go. There's referrals that have to happen. You have to have the right kind of insurance. Ashley had private insurance, which proved to be a barrier because a lot of places would only take Medicaid. So I called every rehab and detox facility within 50 miles, wrote down everything I thought Ashley might need to know, and presented all that information to her so that she could make a choice. Up to that point, people had tried to make choices for her. And obviously that didn't work. She needed to be in charge of her own recovery, and I wanted her to make the decisions that she needed to make. What I also learned was the amount of judgment, not only for Ashley because of her substance use, but for us as a family. We weren't helping her in the right way, or we weren't helping her enough, or we were helping her too much. And we didn't know what we were doing. We were just trying to support her in the best way that we could, but it got to a point to where we didn't want to ask for help because we didn't want to talk to people about it, and we began to isolate just like she had been. So that stigma and that judgment was preventing her from getting help and for us providing her the help that she needed. And I don't think people realize how much of an impact that can have. Then we learned about recovery, what that looks like. And then we learned about relapse. And then we learned about recovery and relapse and over and over and over again, because that's the cycle. It's typical of someone who's in recovery to take 1 step forward and 5 steps back. And we went through that with her and tried to walk that journey with her. We talked a lot about her mental health in general. And I used to tell her, Ashley, heroin is not your problem. Heroin is what you're using to mask your problems. Until you get to the root of it and get some good, healthy coping mechanisms, you're always going to struggle. And she was trying. She was working. Until January 10th of 2023, she had a bad day and relapsed and was found in her car at Sheldon Park with a needle in her arm. And we had to learn now how to live life without her, along with her 2 children and her husband and everyone else that loves her. So our whole world changed. We have to live the rest of our lives without ever hearing her giggle. She had the best laugh. And she did the best pinky swears. I don't know how you can judge that, but I think hers were the best. I couldn't let that be the end of her story. Not for me and not for her kids. So that's why we started the ASH Network. We also began to learn about how many more people needed help. Before we learned about Ashley's addiction, I was living life with blinders on. I had no idea there was an opioid epidemic happening in my community. And now I see it everywhere. So I know Ashley would have wanted to help others, and we talked about it. She wanted to, when she got well, maybe work in a rehab or something. So I knew that this was the right thing to do. So I started connecting to organizations in Muskegon, Oceana, Newaygo counties, any place that I could get connected, any coalition, and started to kind of try to create a network of people to work with and determine what the needs were. And I tried to learn as much as I could about addiction, about the challenges with prevention, and I'm still learning every day. Of course, the drug culture is changing every day. There's new things coming out all the time. I learned the word stigma and harm reduction. And ultimately, I found that the stigma was just such a massive barrier. Again, when people are feeling judged, they're less likely to reach out for help. And I found that a lot of our medical professionals and law enforcement officers were really jaded from dealing with the same people over and over and over again. And so there wasn't a lot of empathy. And I thought, what can we do to change that perception, that social perception? What can we do to kind of change the narrative? So we created the Ask campaign. We make bracelets that have the words ASK on them, which stands for Addiction Silence Kills. Does anybody here, have you heard of the bracelets? Awesome. Yeah, yay. If you don't have one, we have a bunch at our table back there, so please come and get some. But we started handing those out. We give them to every partnering organization we can in Muskegon and again in Newaygo and Oceana counties. I've been told that some have made it all the way to California. When people reach out to me, I had somebody message me from Washington State. I sent them some. So we have over 35,000 of them so far that are out into the world. And it's about creating a conversation and getting people to talk about addiction. It's also kind of proven to be kind of this, I don't have my word, but it's created some camaraderie with people that are in recovery. They'll see someone else wearing a bracelet and they'll feel connected to them and feel like they can talk to them about it. So that's been a big, powerful thing too. Ultimately, why that's important is because the opioid epidemic is so large that it's going to take the entire community to recognize it and fight it. And that can't happen if enough people don't know that addiction isn't a choice, it's a neurologic deficit. It's a struggle, it's a battle, it's not easy to get well. And the more people that know that, the more empathy we'll find. For the youth, I like to share this because I can tell you drugs are bad and they're scary. And I remember back in the day, that didn't work on me either. You know, the dare thing. So scare tactics aren't awesome, but it is scary. And I can tell you, Ashley had one bad day. And by the way, it wasn't heroin in her system. It was fentanyl, 100% fentanyl. You never know if what you're taking is what you think you're taking. There are even drug dealers buying pill presses off of Amazon, and they're pressing fentanyl into pills that look like acetaminophen, Tylenol, Oxy, Xanax, but it's all fentanyl. So you need to be aware of the dangers so that you can make informed decisions. And I used to work for Volunteer Muskegon with Youth Volunteer Corps, and what I learned there was how powerful a movement with youth is. There's so much positivity that you can put into the world, and I don't think most. I don't want to call you guys kids because you're young adults, but I don't think you guys know how much power you have. So to bring a positive message like Ask into the world would travel very far with your voice. So everybody here, what I ask for is to help to foster the Ask movement, whether you're wearing a bracelet or you're just talking about it. I don't speak in hushed tones anymore when I say the words heroin, fentanyl, addiction, substance use disorder, and I don't want any of you to either. It's not something that we should ever be ashamed of, and everyone needs to know that. So the other thing about Ask is it also stands for Ask for Help. Ask someone if they need help, and ask how you can help others. Thank you.